There you go. Okay. Okay. Here goes the proposal. Yes. It's good. Okay. That's not good. Yeah. Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of the Grad School Chronicles. Today is a big day. I finished and handed in my qualifying exam research proposal. And that calls for a bit of a celebration. And in my books, it's a bit of a jam on my favorite guitar to date. Just look at this thing. It is beautiful. But enough of that. Let's get on with the episode. You may be under the impression that I'm pretty happy right now. I mean, after all, getting this research proposal done is about halfway there to transferring from the master's program to the PhD program. But if I'm completely honest with you, I feel more dead than happy right now. I mean, getting this thing done was a lot of work and not without a few problems on the way. And in part, that's what I wanted to talk to you about in this episode of the Grad School Chronicles. I'm sorry for not having made a video earlier. I know I promised to you and to myself to try and stay on schedule and get a video out every 2 weeks at the maximum, but this last month has been completely insane. Besides working on my research proposal, I've also finished the first, chapter of my thesis, the first project in grad school, and my supervisor and I had to write a paper, and we've successfully submitted the paper to the Journal of Chemical Communications, which I absolutely love that journal. It is definitely my first choice, and I'd be so happy if it goes there. So far it's in the peer review stage, which is already good that it hasn't been rejected at the editorial level, but we'll see what the reviewers think and how that goes. I'll make sure to update you on that at some point. But there was a major obstacle which I've encountered in both cases of writing my first research manuscript and writing this research proposal. And that is something fairly personal, but I have a feeling that maybe other people have gone through this or are going through this, so I thought it's worth talking about. And the problem really came down to me not being able to let my projects and let my writing grow out of its original form in the process of preparing these documents. Let me tell you about the research article first. Essentially, at the point when we were writing the article, I was so extremely frustrated with the project, like many of us are probably in grad school. And I've completely ignored my supervisor's advice to develop the project further from its original state. And the reason why my supervisor suggested that is really because we do have some exciting data to show about our project, and it would be a shame to just end up publishing this work in a low-key, low impact factor journals. So, I mean, my supervisor was really trying to look after me and to try to encourage me to come up with a more interesting story in a sense and complete the story on the project in order for us to publish in a higher impact factor journal. And unfortunately, for one reason or the other, or more precisely because I was so frustrated with the project, I've I just didn't do that. I didn't follow my supervisor's instructions, and now that I look back at it, it was a silly decision, to be honest, because at the end of the day, we ended up completing the story to the extent that my PI wanted, and I think truly the story became so much stronger and so much better than what it was when we were just at the stage of starting to write the manuscript. That, you know, I mean, I screwed up. I should have definitely listened to my PI and followed her advice and complete my part of the research, let that project develop into something bigger than what we originally planned it to be. And sort of a similar thing actually happened with the research proposal as well. And I mean, it sucks to admit these things, but I guess I maybe didn't learn my lesson at the stage of writing my proposal, but I hope that I certainly have by now. When I was writing the research proposal, one of the sections in my developed draft, which I already sent to my PI to review at that point, I've realized that that section had an inherent logical flaw in it. And when I realized that, I mean rationally, but unfortunately, I got fairly upset with myself. I became really angry and I almost completely gave up on the whole thing. I mean, I just felt like all my efforts went to waste. I was spending so much time and so much mental attachment to that proposal, and essentially I had to scratch a huge chunk of it and rewrite the whole thing, and that sucked. But again, at the end of the day, at some point I was able to pull myself together and just, you know, put my head down and forget about everything, forget about life, and just rewrite that section of the proposal. And at the end of the day, again, the proposal became so much stronger after I've allowed myself to accept the fact that it needs to grow and it needs to be developed to a new level from the original idea. At the end, it all paid off, and that's something that I really hope that I've learned from these two experiences moving forward in my academic career, and that's something that I thought is maybe useful to share with anybody out there who is going through their graduate student career in a similar stage that I am, and maybe you're at the point of writing your first manuscript, or again writing some research proposals for funding or for transferring from one program to the other. There is no way to go about it. I mean, it's hard to admit our own failures, even though this is not a failure, but it might very well feel like it is a failure at the point when you realize that you need to change things up. But you're gonna be better off at the end. Consult with your colleagues, see what they think. Trust your PI's opinion. I mean, they've gotten this far in their career, right? They gotta know something about how the academic world works. And sometimes that's difficult to do, right? Not all of us have good relationships with our PIs, and even when we do have good relationships with our PIs, that doesn't mean that they are that way all the time. It goes through phases, just like anything else. It's hard for me to give you a lot of advice on how to handle the situation when you go through these obstacles. As I said, you know, this is something that I'm trying to improve in myself still, and I don't have all the answers yet. But one thing which has really helped me when I was rewriting my research proposal was keeping a lot of versions of my work. So every time I would make even the smallest change to my original version, I would just save it as a separate document. And you know, every time I would reopen it, I'll just immediately save it as a new version before going on and doing any changes. And it's good habit anyway to save many versions of your work, but I found that in this particular instance, it was more of a mental comfort thing. You know, I felt very attached to the work that I've already done on that original draft of the proposal. So having the thought in the back of my head that, you know, any changes that I make, I can always roll back to that original version. It's safe, it's on my computer, it's on my cloud drives and whatever. You know, that just made it so much easier for me to actually get myself to the point of doing serious edits to that proposal and try to approach the situation from a noble perspective. I still think to an extent that being in academia is a noble trade and a noble thing to do. And you know, if we ourselves don't bother fixing our own mistakes, who will? So even if you have a hard time justifying going that extra mile for others, do it for yourself. That should be the priority anyway. Well, this is getting a little bit too philosophical for the episode on YouTube, so I think I'm going to take it easy for today. I'm going to play a bit more of guitar, and I will see you later. My candidacy is scheduled for April 18th of 2018, so I'm not making promises when the next video is going to come, but I promise you that it will come, and I will certainly talk more about the experience of going through the candidacy and all the relevant things. Stick around. Thank you so much for all of your support. I really appreciate it. Make sure to comment with any suggestions for future videos. And I hope you have a wonderful end of your semester. I will see you later.